All right,
Okay.
we're going.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Mark. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're. I'm in Hawaii, and you are in.
In Irvine, California.
Oh man, Irvine, California.
Yeah.
Yes, beautiful Irvine. Yes, yes,
Hmm.
yes. Okay, this is kind of our first kind of get together here to talk about. Well, part of this is like a hopefully a series of things we'll be doing down
That
the
could be
road here.
fun. That might be fun.
Fun.
Sure.
And so maybe I wanted to just kind of let you kind of you had coined a phrase um, during even way back when years ago. You kind of were. I want to say this is about 5 years ago, like 4 or 5 years
Probably.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about we were doing all this thing about artificial intelligence. So just so folks know that Mark and I had worked together at Oceanet and kind of stood up this applied AI team at Oceanet, gosh, about 5 years ago now,
Over 5 years ago.
over four
Yeah.
years ago. Yeah, and even back then, you were already talking about some things, and I don't know. I just want to kind of open that up to kind of set some framing here of eventually but we'll give some background and everything. But anyway, so
Sure.
Mark, maybe you can kind of start us off on our history and
All
what we
right.
were talking about way back when.
Sure. So even before I joined, this thing called the deep learning started to become a thing, right? And that's when the AI, even though historically there was a thing called the neural nets, and then it kind of died because there was a limitation. But then there was a revival of AI, of neural nets, several years ago, and there's certainly this thing called the deep learning. We started to see some amazing things, especially in the world of image processing, right? We had image classification and object detection and so on, and that was already amazing. That was almost like such a futuristic thing we saw, right? And all of a sudden we started to see possibilities. Even though back then language models were not great, there was no. I mean, there was GPT, but I guess, but it wasn't really available to the public. But we still saw some amazing possibilities, even without GPT, right? So we started to work on some applications, and then we started to kind of ponder about the future of mankind because of that already. And so again, even before we started working for Oceanet, we had this AI workshop in Hawaii,
Mm.
and yeah, and we turned something that was a little difficult to use for average people, but we made this tool. Well, that was the first form of what we later called Aloha AI, I guess.
Aloha
And
AI.
we,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
and
Aloha
we,
AI.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
we actually let participants experience building an AI model on their own by building a Aloha AI detection model, right? So that was pretty cool.
Right. Well,
And
but you gotta tell them like what were we trying to detect?
there was Aloha. We wanted it was an image classification, simple image classification model, right? If there's we built like a real time app where if there's an aloha shirt in the image, it shows an aloha shirt, and then if not, no, nothing. So that was the model that we wanted to build. Yeah, and we picked aloha shirts because, well, of course, that we were in Hawaii, but also that was a tough question to ask, tough question to work on for a computer back then. But this deep learning thing was able to do it. So that was the most amazing part. It's hard to define, even in human language, it was hard to define what aloha charts are, and yet human mind could comprehend what aloha charts are supposed to be. And for the first time, probably, for a computer to be able to actually tell pretty accurately what aloha charts are. So
Yeah.
that was what a part of the fun. That's when we start to see the future.
Right. Right. When I think about it, we were probably the first. You're probably the first to ever do that for a Aloha shirt using AI.
Probably.
Like, who would use AI to detect if somebody's wearing an Aloha shirt? Only the guys from Hawaii, right? So,
Yeah, yeah,
so we're on the bleeding edge. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then shortly after that, I mean, really, the AI, the application of the AI really exploded. Um, Not just among high-tech companies, but among general public. It became a thing in our life, right? And then we started to actually deploy those smart AI models to smaller devices like Raspberry Pi, and we demonstrated that it's possible and it's cheap, pretty fast, and something that the kids can actually assemble. So we worked with the students actually using those Raspberry Pi based AI devices. We built people counter. We built what in the COVID hit the
Right. Yeah.
society.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we started to work on things like mask detection. We taught kids how to build it. We helped them, and many other projects during the COVID, and also a traffic counter as well using the AI.
Right. Right. So
And
people.
yeah. And then with those things like a people counter and a traffic counter, we can handcrafted things. And then maybe a couple years later, there were actually some we started to see actual startup companies, a real company, basically doing the same thing and making. I don't know if they're making money or not, but we started to see those booths at the conferences, and yeah, we definitely started something that many other people were thinking about, and we actually worked on those.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
this is all part of this applied idea, right? I think when Mark, I got together, that was like the early days. And I think about it too, based on that timing, that was the time probably Google was just at that time making the big breakthrough with transformers,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
2017, 2018, right? Um,
Academically, yes,
yeah,
yes. We
right,
have to wait for a few more years for that to kind of materialize as GPT. Yes.
right. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was fascinating time to be on the bleeding edge, trying to figure out again this whole idea, right? You know, AI was already coming really quick. Even
Yeah.
back when, even I feel like, when we were kind of studying together about where AI was, I was so shocked of how quickly it was coming, even back in 2018. And that's when we were like, wow, we really gotta focus on what can you do with AI today already
Hmm.
versus, Ocean, we're already doing a lot of research, but it's like, what can you do with what is available today? And that was, um, and you were just amazing, Mark, just to like create all these little tools that the kids could do. And I remember the kids being able to pick, like different things to detect using the Raspberry Pi, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
there were a certain amount of types of objects that could be detected, and they could choose like, hey, I want to use it to detect cats or versus dogs
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
birds, and so all of a sudden the ability to just count things in nature or out,
Hmm.
whatever was, and be able to get that data and then be able to do something with it. I thought, that was kind of crazy. That was like 5 years ago.
Yeah. I know. And then back then, we thought progress in AI was just so fast and the fastest ever. And then the only mistake we had made was I was growing and moving as fast as we thought that was like the fastest possible speed that something could actually develop, but we were wrong.
Yeah,
It actually accelerated even since then.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, so it wasn't linear progress, it was exponential progress. That was amazing. I mean, back then we didn't think definitely, GPT would not happen this soon. And when you were talking about other AI things that the ocean was working on, you would often say, those guys are working on something that would materialize in 10 years. But I guess you were wrong. I mean,
yeah,
AGI or artificial general intelligence is like, maybe next year, maybe in 2 years.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, when ChatGPT came to the public view, I think it blew out everybody who's doing research in AI.
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah,
I'm sure this impacted everybody who was doing any kind of work around AI, and if all of a sudden everything started moving to transformers and all of
yeah,
that. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so we were wrong by we were right and wrong at the same time. We could see the thing coming quickly, but it came so much faster, right? I
Yep.
mean, instead of 10 years, it came in like 2 years or 1 year.
Something like that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So a
yeah.
tenth of the time. So let's talk about, I don't know. So the future. So what does the future look like?
Uh, so I'm thinking actually before this
Yeah.
talk,
Yeah.
I did my actually homework, and you suggested a specific in a certain way, right? We kind of talk like this, and then the AI take care of a summary and everything,
Mhm.
and that gave me an idea. I want to kind of prepare and kind of do brainstorming. So I used
Mm.
like a GPT mobile app and had a
Mhm.
conversations
Ah.
uh, while I was walking my dog. So I was actually pushing my stroller of my aging dog. And I just for almost an hour, I had a conversation, long conversation with a chat GPT 4.0. I think
Or
it's
oh,
4.0.
okay, then yeah,
Yeah,
this version, yep,
yeah.
Omni.
And
Hmm.
I asked it to ask me questions, simple questions, kind of to brainstorming.
Oh,
So
oh,
I kept answering those small questions for almost an hour. And then I asked it to summarize it.
oh.
So yeah, that's actually a good method.
That's a good method. Yes, yes, I do
Right?
the same thing when I go walking. I talk to 4O.
Yeah. So in terms of what's coming in the future, I think it's coming in three stages, right? Um, the first stage is still focused around the increase in productivity. So, I mean, we're already seeing it, right?
Yeah.
We have this existing industries, and then the productivity in those industries are looking really, really moving fast and getting better and better and better. That's the first stage, right? Second stage um, is going to be something else will be added, I think, right? It will be still existing industries, but in those industry, the services, people start to shift their focus on human connections and empathy, right? So, for example,
Mm.
healthcare, of course, healthcare industry will be the productivity of that will be boosted by AI. You don't have to do diagnosis or information processing and stuff like that. But I think people start to value more, say, soft skills, so to speak, right? Um, Bedside manners and how they communicate.
Mm.
So the focus will start to shift toward those areas in existing industries, right? So that's stage two. Other industries in that realm could be, say, education, for example.
Mm.
Maybe teachers may don't have to really learn everything, like every detail, but they're going to become empathetic facilitators with good people skills, good kid skills. Maybe customer services. Maybe it will be taken over by AI, but maybe there will be some humans uh, who will take care of some subtle things, but with a lot better people skills, right? Career conflict resolution, right? Those are things. Personal
Mm.
development, coaching, childcare, elder care, and other kind of hospitality services. So that's stage two, right? So that's hybrid. And the last stage is what we call the fully realized empathy economy, where um, there's going to be service, not which is not a hybrid of existing industry and empathy, but it's actually like the industry for the sake of empathy itself. Meaning, I mean, even back then when we started to talk
Mhm.
about uh, by we talked about this thing called the professional listeners, professional
Yeah,
friends.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, you were
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about, you're saying there's gonna be a market for people, you're gonna hire people just to like listen to me,
yeah,
like, or
yeah,
just to interact
yeah,
with somebody. I mean,
yeah.
you're talking about that years ago.
Right, right. And I think there might be some other service industry around that idea. For example, uh, authentication services. If you're doing Zoom call like this, you want to
Mm.
know that the person or entity you're talking to is an actual human being rather than a replica of a human being, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
there needs to be some kind of authentication. People pay for the fact or the knowledge that you're talking to actual human being, right? And there could be some kind of matching services or facilitation services to kind of connect the kind of people you want to connect with. So there might be some other industries around that idea. So
Right.
that's the
Right.
first stage three. So yeah, so that's the I mean, that could be far future. It may not be a near future, but eventually that might be the last form of the empathy economy. So that's what
Mm,
I'm thinking in terms
yeah.
of in what stages it's coming.
Okay, so stage one
Yeah,
is
existing industries only, but still
productivity. Yeah.
productivity driven
Okay.
economy.
Stage two.
Uh, in, uh, Industries are still existing industries that we see, but the focus will be more toward empathy and connection
Empathy.
because we don't have to think about really productivity.
Right, right, right. We're kind of moving past the productivity
Yeah,
question and because we're
exactly,
getting it.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
we're able to do 30-40% more, in the same amount of time.
right, right.
So the shift starts going towards more the people part, the human element.
Yeah, yeah,
And then the
yeah.
third is
Is more fully materialized or fully realized empathy economy, meaning
empathy.
the only focus is connection itself rather
Uh,
than value added, rather than
right.
added value. Yeah.
Interesting. As you say these things too, right? I think as I think about the future as well, I'm I think because of artificial intelligence, one of the things what is happening too is this whole kind of drones and robotics.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, industries are starting. I mean, drones have been, we were, at Ocean and all that, the drone stuff for, like, a decade ago, or if not
yeah.
more, has been going on. But when it comes to like robots, but more like humanoid bipedal robots, like
Mm,
that seems to be like kind of a nascent thing right now, but it seems like that's coming quickly. And with
mhm,
the combination of, like some intelligence, like
yeah.
adding, chat gpt, or potentially grok, from
Mm, mm,
from elon and others. I'm curious, like I think that's gonna happen technically faster than we're expecting.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I wonder about the social piece of it, right? Like again, the robots may be used for like in warehouses and the dirty, dangerous, boring
yeah.
stuff that you want robots to do. But I'm interested in what our thoughts are around, when that starts happening, like as part of the mix, because I think that's going to touch the first point, which is the productivity question,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
A lot. It's just not, I know the AI phase in phase one in productivity will be like, hey, I'm using, Copilot, I'm using, Gemini, I'm
Right,
using
right.
some of these tools. But I think when those robots are coming in, that'll be starting like you go to like the fast food place and now it's a robot that's actually walking around
Right.
at McDonald's, preparing the order,
Yeah, yeah.
or doing, like cooking up the fries, which I used to do, which I was always get burned. You get burned, like, so you just it's hot oil. So you're just like every day you get burned, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah. So even though I already mentioned what the empathy economy might look like, I kind of ignored one big assumption. And that topic may not, I mean, it's a big topic, and I don't know if you can finish talking about it. But I'm going to just like maybe mention briefly because it's important component of this discussion. I mean, we're assuming that average people will be able to afford it, right? And yeah, yeah. Um,
mm,
Probably. I mean, let's. But eventually it will. I'm guessing maybe in like 20 years because the what cars were initially really really expensive and luxury, but I
yep.
think it took them like maybe 20 years for them to be able to be say affordable. Um, so
Well, Henry
maybe
Ford.
yeah, yeah,
Henry Ford, all of a sudden, I don't know. Elon Musk is saying his Optimus robot's gonna be like $25,000 or something, or some. I don't know
yeah,
what the
yeah.
price is, but that seems like, oh. that sounds pretty cheap. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's like, I mean, can you finance the robot?
yeah.
2.9% interest.
Yeah, maybe if they start to make robots, those robots may be able to make other robots, so to making it even more expensive, more cheaper, right?
Yeah, like who can actually make robots at scale? I don't know. That's where Tesla may have an advantage because if they can make 2 million
Yeah,
cars, I'm thinking they can probably make
yeah,
2 million robots, no problem.
yeah. Um, so another big assumption was that I assume that everybody can actually get paid to be able to afford those empathy services.
Hmm.
One possibility is that initially it's only the top, say 5-10% of the richest people can actually afford it. It becomes like a almost like a organic food kind of industry, right? It could be luxury.
Mm, right,
Um,
right, right.
um, but also, um, I mean, it's but if you want to expand that economy, if I'm assuming that it will have to expand, or if we want to, if humanity want to expand that the percentage of the people who can afford it, and if it's inevitability, or we could say, I mean, it's just no job at all for like simple stuff. And uh, in order for the new economy to grow, consumers will have to be able to afford those services. How
Mm,
do they get paid, right? Um, so
good
I mean,
question.
yeah. I mean, the honest answer is we really don't know. I mean, there might be some other jobs, like the remaining jobs, like physical jobs and cleaners and the sewer, like what's the people who repair sewage. But I don't know. I mean, if the robots become really, really ubiquitous, I mean, we really, really don't need existing jobs. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
this empathy economy is inevitability, uh, maybe humanity will choose to allow everybody to have some money or some value to pay, or I don't know if there's going to be money. But I mean, one option could be a UBI or universal basic income. People have been talking about it.
Mm,
There's some obstacles, but that's one possibility.
right.
Honestly, personally, I can't think of any other way right now, but there might be some other ways. I don't know.
Good question. Actually, I was gonna watch. Do you know Do you know the movie Blade Runner,
Yeah, yeah, of course.
the
Yeah,
original one?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's a new version, but I was gonna watch because that one is all about all these robots, right? Like part of it was like
yeah, yeah.
is she real, or these you know
I think that movie was so accurate in a few major ways. One was that exactly that, and another big thing was that in the far future, even though when the technology was amazing and everything's automated, there's this discrepancy between the ones who have and the ones who don't. There was a clear line between the upper class, and there wasn't real middle class.
right. It's
So
another form of digital
yeah,
divide, right?
yeah, digital divide exactly. Yeah.
It's another form of digital
So
divide.
hopefully that's not going to happen. I mean, because the reason that I hopefully it's going to happen is uh, because historically human has boosted the productivity really really fast. So
Right.
in theory, wealth per person has increased as well. So in theory, everybody should be able to enjoy the fruit of those technological progress.
Mm,
But I mean, so I kind of hate to use the phrase redistribution of wealth because that doesn't come with a good connotation in some parts of the United States, although you know that's not taboo in many other countries in Europe and
right.
Asia. But um, that may have to happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think we were talking earlier on another call about, and as I look at, you know, it's as I over the last, 5, 6 years, as we were doing all of these things around artificial intelligence and learning about how do you build systems, right? How do you build these
yeah,
models for deep learning and the requirements of like you need lots of data, right? Like
Yeah.
you're always saying, well, the data, and we need lots of different. It's not just, if you want to detect dogs, it's not just about
Yeah.
getting images of dogs. You need images of all kinds of other things that are not dogs, right? As you were
Yeah.
saying, and then the amount of compute that you
Yeah.
need to do all of
Hmm.
this. You need lots of data. The more
Yeah.
data, the better. The more compute, the better,
Mm,
because
mm,
you need those computers to like train up the models, and then you have the detection piece, which people called inference, right?
mm,
and and then I started thinking about, like, so who has all the data and who has all the compute? Who can afford it? Who has
yeah.
been collecting all of that data,
Right.
right?
Right.
And you guys can imagine, we can all imagine the companies that have uh you know our
The scary
data.
thing is that we only need 10 fingers to count the people, the companies who have those,
Oh
right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Maybe.
maybe
Yeah.
even less
Maybe.
than 10, maybe less than 10
Maybe no.
figures.
No. 5 in US, but maybe 5 in
Yes,
China.
true. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe 10 for, because you have Baidu and all these other guys in
Yeah.
China
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Alibaba, but like Amazon has tons and tons. Like, who has the most valuable, pieces of your data out there, right?
So
And have the money to
yeah.
build these
As we
amazing
were just
systems.
as we were talking, what we were just talking about, maybe we were asking the wrong question. We should, you teach design thinking, and
Right.
and I was part of it, but I guess I was forgetting one of the important things. The question was whether or not empathy economy will happen or not. Maybe the question is, how can we monetize human connection? How we can make human connection, empathy, uh, profitable? How might we?
How might we?
How
Well,
might we?
well, I want to maybe twist that a little bit, right?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, because I think, uh, yeah, like, how might we make empathy a part
Sustain. No,
of, like, yeah,
yeah,
how might we make empathy as important, right,
as productivity.
as productivity and profitability and all of that, because that's going to happen at some level,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're able to um I think, not lose sight of the fact that empathy is maybe really the foundation, right? Because
Mm,
everybody is definitely looking at all the cool, it's like a shiny object thing right now, right?
yeah, yeah.
Now, but AI is not a flavor of the month thing. It is like a generational technology that's going to impact everybody,
Hmm.
every industry. Um, but yeah, well, I think this is
Yeah,
important. The coining that phrase, the empathy economy. I think
yeah.
that that kind of at least sets in motion this idea that it's not just about productivity and
Right.
profitability. Um,
Yeah. So one scenario might be it may just emerge out of necessity, maybe.
yep,
Right.
yep,
Right.
yep. You're
And
right.
because everything is practical, people get turned off, and then the only value that's left in a society in a life might be connection, empathy,
Yeah,
and then there might be some framework or structure where empathy becomes new currency.
yeah, yeah. The person I wish we could just pop into the conversation right now is Auntie Poon and Emergence, because Auntie would be. It would be really interesting what questions Auntie would be asking, right, about
Mm,
this.
mm,
But
yeah,
maybe that's like a follow on, right? is
yeah, yeah,
that conversation?
yeah, and yeah, and when empathy and connection are the new currency or the only value that's left to explore, I think what's going to be important is to um, one of the most important qualities probably will be authenticity, because right now uh, it's a serious skill, right? Because we
Hmm.
don't know who we are, we don't know what we want, and we try and crave that through work, doing productive things, and so
Right.
we don't know. So we're gonna have to learn to be authentic and even make ourselves vulnerable. And we know when we meet people with those skills or positive traits, we know it feels good, but we don't know how. But I think it
Mm,
will be a requirement, just like people
mm.
learn skills for productivity, maybe people will be learning how to be authentic.
But it's interesting. So you're really talking about the human qualities, right? For the age of AI, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
what are those human qualities that are going to be even more important,
yeah.
right?
I think
Authenticity,
this
huh?
idea, yeah. So this idea, I don't think it's new. I was thinking about this. Star Trek, because of characters like a Spock and Data,
Yeah, yeah.
those characters often tell us what it takes to be a human, right? And
Yes.
yeah. So ironically, those non-human things or less human things will kind of
Mm.
allow us to be human. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think it's a kind of beautiful irony.
Yeah, yeah. It's a mirror, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
helps you to see what's special about you, what's
Yeah.
uniquely you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what are the qualities of uniquely being human.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. You got to see the opposite to see the, like seeing the
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah.
I heard this phrase recently. I was listening to a talk, and the person talking about AI says, one thing about AI is it doesn't care,
It doesn't. Right.
right? I thought, yeah, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very unique human quality,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It also doesn't hate, and that's another very
Mm-hmm.
unique
Mm-hmm.
human quality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, we'll see the good and the bad sides of ourselves,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's not judgmental, but it also doesn't care.
It doesn't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, See, I wonder, the things like, like a quality that um that I try and pick up when I'm meeting with people, over time too. It takes time to pick up this
Yeah.
particular, just like you say, authenticity, right? I think of sincerity.
Mm-hmm.
Is this person, sincere? Where
Mm-hmm.
it's another version of authentic, right? Are
Right.
they, do they, which I think ties to, I think people who are sincere at some level also, it connects to the care,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
right? It shows up in the form of, the expression, or outwardly, like their actions show that they care, right? It's not just their words. It's 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 the feeling, it's the emotion that comes through, that tells you like, oh, this person actually cares. They're very sincere. They're very authentic. Um, and that's a unique human skill, right? That's a human trait.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I
I'm gonna ask a question. I know you're a caring person. You care, but when you were really, really young teenager, did you care?
no, no,
Why
well,
did
I shouldn't
you?
say that. I shouldn't say that. I cared. I always
Yeah.
cared, but I cared about different things,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, same
right?
here. Why did you learn to or come to care others in different ways?
I think I think it happens because when I think about it, before I would only care about myself.
Yeah.
I'm very selfish, very
Yeah.
self-centered, very, much into, okay, what am I gonna do? Like, what am I gonna be? Like, I think there's that phase in your life, that, because you're worried. I don't know, I was scared. Like, what am I gonna do, right? Finishing college, but I
Yeah.
think part of it is, there were moments when, like, for example, my cousin, who was kind of my idol, she was like this person I kind of idolized. She was just, she's beautiful, articulate, smart. She was very well respected in the community, well known in the community. She helped to do all kinds of things, but she got really sick, and
mm,
just basically days before passing away, I had a chance to sit with her.
mm,
And she made me think about, like, you don't have to, like, in my mind, I was always like, well, someday when I'm rich and famous or powerful, I can help people.
mm,
And she was like, no, you have to help people now.
mm,
Like, don't wait.
mm,
Which made sense, because she ran out of time, but she had
mm,
always been helping the community, the
mm.
people, regardless if she had any influence or anything. She just one person trying to do good
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
And that's when I realized, yeah, I was in my 20s, and I was like, yeah. And I've been through other things too, and it just made me think, like, well, you don't, one person can make a difference.
Mm,
And I've seen it over and over again, right? It's just how you treat people when you're at the grocery store, or when you're sitting at a restaurant, and how you treat the waitress, right?
mm, mm, mm.
You can make their day, or you can make their worst day, right? So I think, and again, this is the part where I think AI, what will AI do, right? Will eventually be able to, I don't know, be able to care? Like, how will, but this is the thing, right? They talk about AGI, right? I don't think you get to AGI but someday, when AI can actually care and be sincere and all of that, and not be it, but it's like, I don't know how you authenticate that, right? Like, it's like actually care. That's gonna be like AGI. Like, that's gonna be freaky, right? It's like it actually, like, I don't know. It's like, how is that even possible? But I don't know. Is it
Yeah,
possible,
yeah,
right? Because we still don't really know what's happening
yeah,
in that black box, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, folks are researching it, but and I just listened to a talk by folks at MIT, and I go, oh,
Mm,
they're kind of figuring this out, but
mm.
it's it's a mystery.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Okay, so what
Um,
happens when you get quantum computing
yeah.
in this realm?
Before that,
Yeah,
before
yeah,
that,
yeah.
can I
Take it
ask
away.
to give you the
Yeah,
my
what's
version
your
of the answer?
yeah.
I I didn't care when I was a kid, especially because I was a smart kid. You know,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm smarter than all of you.
That was a curse because I didn't know how to care. Then
Mm,
the reason I said to care was okay. The first one was when I got dumped or rejected for the first time by a girl.
mm,
I had no idea how much it hurts to get rejected or to get dumped.
mm,
Yeah, and it was a physical condition. You physically feel the hurt. When you're emotionally hurt. So
mm,
that
mm.
stayed. The memory of the hurt and pain stays. That's why I care. That's my first experience, I guess.
Ah, yes, the
The
feedback,
second,
the
yeah, the
feedback
feedback.
loop was
Yeah.
painful.
The second
Uh,
is when I became a minority member when I came to the US. In Japan, I was a majority member, so I didn't know what
yep.
it's like to feel small in a society given, right? Now, all of a sudden I came here, oh, I'm a minority member. I became self-conscious and I self-conscious about, how I look and my accent and, my imperfect grammar and stuff like that. And I started to feel
Mm-mm-mm.
small. Back later, I learned I didn't have to, but I chose to feel small, and I acted out of my this insecurity. I was insecure, so that's I started to care other minority groups.
Mm.
So yeah, so I guess the degree at which I care really got enhanced because of that. And I really appreciate those experiences actually.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, then you bring up this, just talking about this, right?
yeah.
Makes me think about, um, of course, equity, and
Mm-hmm.
like how to, like for like minorities, people in the margin who actually could probably benefit them a lot from this powerful new tool called artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Like how do you make sure people don't, especially on this new on this generational kind of power shift, that folks don't get further left behind who are the minorities.
Yeah. And when we talk about those things, we often talk about education and the kids. That's what we've been trying to do, and try to give them the ability to see the future and then work on and learn things that will be useful. But this is the toughest time to get advice to kids. It's really hard to predict what it's going to take to have a rich life, rich meaning, a fulfilling life. I just can't have a really good answer for them right now.
So imagine growing up today. Imagine like the kids who grew up through the internet age, right?
Yeah,
Or just go back 100 years. 100 years ago, the invention of the steam engine and the industrial revolution.
yeah,
You went from doing everything manually to actually having machines do what the humans were doing. So in a way, we're like there again, but this is even more powerful, right? And like 98% of us used to work to grow food. Today, it's
yeah,
less than 2% of the
yeah,
population grows all the
yeah,
food
yeah,
because
yeah,
of that industrial revolution.
yeah, yeah.
Now comes this thing called AI,
Hmm.
right? Like, talk about disruption. Like, what is that gonna do, right?
I mean, maybe
To
for the
kids.
first time in the history of mankind, this idea of having a job is questionable, right? There may not be such thing as jobs.
Or,
So
or, or or the
yeah, yeah,
definition changes, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
you are
yeah,
you are still contributing and adding
yeah,
value
yeah,
to some community,
right.
right? Like, and you have these tools, be it that they're hardware, software, they're whatever, um, that actually allows you to, and these digital tools to like deliver value. I guess the question starts becoming, yeah, like what are some of these? There seems to be always these foundational things, like of course healthcare and entertainment, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, all these, food production. Um, it'll be, yeah, it's so wide open for kids today. I mean, that's why I think that mindset that we always kind of tout, which is, the best way to is, the Alan Kay quote, right? The best way to predict the future is to invent it, right?
Mm, mm.
And now kids have, young people or anybody who have access to these tools can create things that you just couldn't do even a few years ago.
Right.
I mean, the maker creator space of being able to do stuff seems to be like blown wide open. Like, what do you want to create? So imagination. So I think of a human skill.
Yeah.
It's going to be really valuable. Is creativity and imagination, and it's actually on the World Economic Forum when they do their yearly skills report.
Mm.
Creativity is number two,
Right now, yes.
right?
Yeah.
Do you see changes in that going
Yes.
forward?
Yes. I
Hmm.
thought about that. Well, I think the thought started when I started to see actually what seems to be like creativity in AI. The things that we thought were part of creativity turn out to be not creativity, really. I mean, generating some amazing realistic photos and then pictures, AIs can do it, right?
Hmm.
And that's because we're talking about creativity that are geared toward perfection. Those things are already taken by AI. I don't think um, that's going to be the focus of the purpose of our creativity. I think instead of people creating arts and things that will wow other people, I'm talking about like more like realm of arts, right? I think it will be people will be using their creativity as part of the self-expression that are geared toward the smaller community rather than the masses, right? Uh, So when they
Mm.
practice authenticity or connection, they might be using their creativity to express themselves and convey their ideas and convey or show who they are. So
Mm.
yeah, so I think the
Yep.
people may you have, and also the thing is that under this the idea of the empathy economy, people don't care about perfection. They because they care people care more about authenticity and those things. Imperfection is perfectly good. In fact, it's preferable. I think people will appreciate being imperfect. I think they will express their imperfection as part of the communication or sharing. So I
Mm.
think, yeah. So I think people will keep creating things, but not really as enhancing the productivity or just wow people. Um, it will be more
Right.
for their more personal purposes.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things I always remember, and I say this to folks is it's a good reminder is I think you told me if if a human could do it, it's very
Mm,
likely you could
yeah,
build a
yeah,
system to
yeah,
actually do it.
yeah,
And you're right, definitely AI seems to be even better at the outcome, like generating lots
yeah.
of actually great potential outcomes.
Yep.
So so what is the role of the human, right, in that process, right? And we're kind of the front end. I feel like what what AI is, it's kind of waiting for our commands. Like it's waiting
Mm,
for us to like, hey, here's the text prompt, create this video for me. But the creativity is actually starting with the human in a sense of pulling multiple things from
mm,
their experiences, their inspiration, the things they
yeah.
see, to then come up with this powerful idea
Hmm.
that they then translate and then feed it, right? And say,
Yeah,
give me
yeah,
this. I want
yeah,
this vision of something.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, big part of what we call creativity comes from that, right? Combining seemingly irrelevant things and create something new.
Hmm.
Um, so the choice is humans, but still, AIs can do that too. They can kind of pick random
Yeah.
things and combine those things. But I
True.
think what's coming next in terms of
Hmm.
what people will create, again, I'm going to go back to the idea of being imperfect, right? Um, you start to see those amazing photos in social media. We already turned off by those. But I really want to do is, I like some of the crappy photos posted by, taken by other friends, the things that are not real with the imperfect lighting. And I, I,
Mm.
I, I almost like feel like I want to start to ask AI to make the image more like human or more imperfect because I want to appear
Mm.
imperfect because I want to express my imperfectness.
Mm.
Maybe that becomes part of new kind of creativity.
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting imperfection.
Yeah,
And then I think of the human quality that allows that to happen
yeah,
is the word vulnerability,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? You're willing to
yeah,
be kind of vulnerable and not have to look good,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like it doesn't have to look like the perfect.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And right now, and maybe for many, many years, AI AIs will not be able to experience those vulnerability and challenges because they don't care.
Yeah, yeah. But
But
this is where, yeah, yeah,
we can express a vulnerability in very imperfect and beautiful ways.
yeah, yeah. But this is where, I wonder, I have this feeling that all the design thinking stuff we've been doing is going to become even more important because
Mm,
design thinking, in a sense, is, you're really trying to create a culture of experimentation, of
mm, mm,
imperfection, of like
mm,
just
mm,
trying and not having to make things perfect, right? Go for, well, we say go for quantity in order to get
mm,
quality,
mm,
right? Which means, yeah, go for imperfection
mm,
to get perfection.
Mm.
right? At some levels, go for imperfections.
So perhaps when you do go through a design thinking process, when you create a prototype, what might become really important is if you have this prototype, how would you feel using it?
Mhm.
Instead of what you would do or what can you do, but how you would feel around it.
Right.
You know?
I can imagine, I don't know when that happens, but that prototype you just talked about that you created, I could somehow experience, like,
Mm, mm,
right? So you did this, whatever, be it, all the things we do today, those paradigms may change, like I'm actually typing in something, I just may vocalize, like, just like with Omni, just vocalize, create for me, and I'm start describing what it is
mm,
I want. And I've actually done this on the mobile app. I actually had it like I was just walking and actually describing what I want, and so it's actually creating this image, and I keep iterating on that image. But then I would like to, at some point, through my glasses or whatever, basically, like, actually interact with it in kind of this virtual world all of a
mm,
sudden,
mm.
right? Where it's like, here it is, like, wow, this is pretty cool. It's like it's the holodeck, right?
Yeah,
Star
yeah,
Trek,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. It's happening. Yeah.
It's coming. The question is when, right? And I still think it's the word surprise is going to keep coming up over and over again.
Mm,
We're going to keep being
yeah,
surprised.
yeah. We thought the surprises were done, but then we were wrong. So
Yeah, yeah,
only it's only logical to think that there will be more surprises. Yes.
yeah, yeah. And they're going to happen faster and quicker. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That is exactly why it's hard to educate kids today and tell them what to do. Oh,
well, maybe that's a future topic, is to
yeah,
get some folks that we work with in education and have this kind of dialogue and talk.
yeah,
So this has been great, Mark. We're
yeah,
just about out of, we're just at kind of our 1 hour mark, and so
yeah,
want to thank you again, and just stay on the line. And
yeah. Sure.